All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a fantastic, snowy Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
I think so. I
that's
thought
the thing, but yeah,
yeah. So I've got some really exciting news for everyone. One of the things that I'd like to start with is we have two new board members on our team, Jenny Bridges and Jeff Owens. Jenny might be able to join us today. Let's hope she does. I have my fingers crossed. And in addition to that, we have launched our programs. Oh, Jenny's here. Let me add her to the stream. Hello.
Hi,
How are you? I'm
I'm
so
doing
excited.
wonderful.
So I was just letting everyone know that we have two fabulous board members on our team now, Jenny Bridges and Jeff Owens. Jeff is not able to be here with us today, but Jenny is, and we'll hopefully introduce you to Jeff very soon. One of another exciting news that I have for you all is that we have officially launched our programs, which I'm really, really excited about. Um, Let me take a breather. I was just telling Chris I'm not used to this. Even after doing this for so long, I'm still camera conscious. But that being said, Nourish Diversity, it's a neurodivergence and nutrition based program, and it's free of cost to everyone. We'll hopefully launch it. It will be launched in March, but we've started and opening the registration. So if you or anyone you know is interested in learning about what role does neurodivergence play in nutrition, please sign up and please share it with your friends and family members. And Jenny, this is Chris. I'm sure you know about him. He's the
Hi,
author of
Chris.
I good
Underdogs.
to meet you.
And I think, Chris, I would like you to kind of like start off with a summary and then we can continue with the book reading. How does that sound?
A summary is in previously on Underdogs.
Yes.
Yes, previously on
Okay,
Underdogs.
so previously on Underdogs. So the strike team, Ewan, Kate, Jack, Charlie, and Alex have got inside New London, and the intention was to find this USB stick that the assassin Keith Tyler had taken from Shannon. This USB stick containing some software that's going to destroy the clone factory if used right. And they split into teams. Ewan and Charlie went to find the USB stick, which, good news, they actually found it. The bad news is that, well, uh, Jack is, having originally been assigned to guarding the exit, he is now being chased by Oliver Roth, I believe, where he's right now is, uh, let me just double check. Yes, he's basically hidden outside the exit door, not knowing whether or not Oliver Roth is on the other side of it. He could be waiting for Jack to open the door. He could have run off and been 2 miles away. Jack doesn't know. And the even worse news is that Alex and Kate, whilst fighting their way up to the clone factory itself, they got spotted, and a clone has pushed the panic alarm on their radio. So, well, everyone knows they're there. How do you think that's bad? Let me read chapters 11 and 12. Yeah, at the end of chapter 12 is going to be one hell of a place to stop, but well. I'll leave you to judge for yourself. So, are we ready? Okay. Chapter 11. Kate's legs complained, but she ran anyway. The 5-minute walk from the summit of Stairwell 42 had turned into a 2-minute jog, with at least 7 dead clones along the way. They wouldn't have long until their victims failed to check in, and swarms of others would head to their last known location. Well, that's an anticlimax, Alex gasped in front of her. They slowed to a halt at a door that read New London Clone Factory, Alpha Control Room. It was a regular, nondescript door, far from the grandeur Kate would have expected from such an important cog in Grant's machinery. Alex opened the door using a dead clone's keycard. The door was half open by the time Ewan's screams came through the radio. Guys, abort mission. Get back to the floor Z exit now. What's wrong? Asked Kate. We were found. We got out safe, but there's no way in hell we can finish this today. If we're getting out alive, it has to be now. Alex shrugged and jogged through the door. Kate jammed her foot in the entrance before it closed and locked itself. Is he doing this to undermine Ewan, or just because he likes doing things alone? Or maybe it's to get away from me. Probably all three. Did you find anything down there? She asked. Yeah, said Ewan. I'll explain on the way home. Now get Alex. He hasn't answered, so I assume he's ignoring me. I'd say good luck, but it's never luck. You got it. The radio fell silent, and 3 gunshots sounded on the other side of the door. Kate rushed inside. Alex was standing at the front of the Alpha control room, with 3 dead clones on the floor behind him. His eyes avoided the enormous desks and complicated panels before him, and stared out of the front window. Kate ran up to him, had a look for herself, and gasped. The clone factory was below them, spread across what must have been the size of 8 football fields. Not 1 square meter of the floor went to waste. Rows and columns of vertical pods stood uprights like airport security scanners, all connected by long cylindrical pipes which fed them whatever chemicals Nathaniel Pierce had designed the stuff of life to be. Each pod was accompanied by its own computer station, all operated by clone soldiers. Clones growing more clones. Fresh troops were staggering out of the pods, their leg muscles acclimatizing to sudden new life, if it could truly be called life. A load of them, perhaps 60, were seated in a monorail carriage ready to depart. Kate guessed the track would head straight for the training rooms. 4 months was not a long time to live, and they would need readying for active duty within days. Because, in case you've forgotten, clones have a very, very short lifespan. They're basically the fast food version of life. The view from the control room was spectacular, in the most horrible way. The clones that took Oakenfold were grown here. The clones that captured my family, they walked out of those machines. Alex, she said to interrupt her own thoughts, it's time to go. Ewan's orders. You know what's he going to do if we disobey him? Plan our funerals. Alex, go. Alex jogged to the exit, dental mirror in hand, and opened the door inwards. Kate did not see what happened as Alex inspected the corridors, but there were gunshots, and he jumped. Bloody hell, they're good, he gasped. Do I get the 7 years bad luck, or do they? What? How many are there? Enough to hit the mirror. Alex launched his telescopic handgun around the doorframe and fired indiscriminately. Beyond the door, Kate saw the beautiful sight of an empty corridor in the other direction, and worked out why the platoon had been so quick to open fire. The control room was not yet surrounded, and they were not yet pinned down. Kate, go first. I'll cover you. What about you? I'll cover myself, duh. Ready on 3. Kate took nervous steps towards the entrance, and took deep breaths while she was still able to. 1, 2, 3, Alex yelled. In the next instant, he was half inside the corridor, pumping out bullets, not to hit specific targets, but to force the clones into hiding. Kate seized her chance, tore through the exit, and sheltered herself behind the wall of the vacant corridor. She turned around just in time to see a bullet burrow through Alex's shoulder and pop a bloody exit wound out of his back. Alex flinched and let out a squeal. Kate had never heard him squeal before, and his handgun dropped to the floor. The bullets must have torn through the nerves in his shoulder like a water cannon through a bunch of daffodils. There was no time to reach for his weapon before the next wave of bullets scared him back behind the door. Alex locked himself inside the control room. It was a dead end, other than a 3-story fall to the factory floor, but Kate knew he had no other choice. The clones were approaching, a horde of them against Kate's single assault rifle. She could imagine Alex on the other side of the door, grasping a sticky shoulder wound, scanning for any kind of second exit, air vents, secret passages, stairways to heaven, anything at all, except the drop from those windows, which would be even more certain to kill him than the bullets. Kate fired until her ammunition ran out, reached for her next clip, and then remembered the weapon was not her own. She was carrying that rifle from the first clone's dead body, and her own ammunition was incompatible. She was as good as unarmed. Come on, Alex, she yelled in her mind. Your dad forced you through so many taekwondo lessons that you don't know what giving up feels like. If you're the type of person to give up, you'd have died in this war 100 times. But Kate knew Alex's martial arts skills and strength of mind would not last long against automatic weapons. The clones were advancing with confidence, and there was only one thing she could do to avoid dying along with Alex. Kate, with tears in her eyes, turned and ran for the stairwell. Jack's single-mindedness was as much an advantage as a disadvantage. It allowed him to focus relentlessly on any problem, as if the rest of the universe were placed on pause. But while he was hyper-focused on one particular task, someone could almost perform surgery on the back of his head without him noticing. This meant that Ewan's screams through the radio had not registered in his mind as he had kept his focus on the entrance door. He had been pointing his handgun towards the doorframe for somewhere between 5 minutes and 1 hour. Oliver Roth was somewhere between 5 miles and 2 feet away from him. Jack's thoughts buzzed around through his head like torturous little lightning bolts. His helmet pressed down on his brain a little harder each minute. He couldn't satisfy his fingers' need to flick each other. In front of him, the entrance to Floor Z stood in silence. Every survival instinct told him that retreat was the best option, but his loyalty got in the way. By the time his thoughts were exhausted, the mechanical mind of Jack Hopper found only 3 options. Number 1, open the door, run into the citadel, and be trapped in the same chaos as the rest of the group, if he found them. Number 2, open the door, get shot by Oliver Roth and die. Number 3, turn around and run home. Escape was unlikely for the others anyway. Maybe if he fled, the mission's death count would be 4 rather than 5. Jack made his decision. After 11 months in Spitfire's Rise, he had built a reputation for himself. When people thought of the word Jack, their first thoughts was of the geeky young man with a dinosaur obsession, bizarre sense of humour, and permanently bad hair. But there was more to him than that. Jack was honest, brutally honest, even when it made him unpopular. And he was loyal. Underneath the teenager who understood machines better than people, there was a young man who stood by his principles far better than most others. For all his issues, Jack was a good guy. And good guys didn't run when 4 of their friends needed help. He lowered his aching arms and felt the warmth of blood flowing back into the veins of his hands. His fingers touched the door's entrance bar and leapt off as if from electric shock. Within 10 seconds, he might be dead. And if he made the wrong decision, his existence in the universe would be over. Jack could not bear the thought. He did not fear the inevitability of death. It was stupid to fear something that happened to everyone. But the thought of empty nothingness, an eternity without awareness or consciousness, the thought of no longer existing, it had been all he had wanted during his worst days. But with the bullies gone forever, he had come to realize how horrifying it was. Jack gritted his teeth and pushed against the bar. The door swung half open to reveal Floor Z in all its ominous glory, neither humans nor clones in sight. It was the emptiness Jack had hoped for. His muscles lowered their guard, and he shook his arms and legs to recirculate his blood. But then the door stopped moving. It went from its 2 inches per second glide to an instantaneous stop. Well, he thought, this doesn't take a physicist. Jack threw himself against the door like a cannonball and sent it flying into the blockage behind it. You twat, it screamed. Jack's throat twisted itself in knots as the killer teenager fell into view, shotgun and all, and collapsed to the ground. Without a moment to waste on thought, Jack turned on his heels and bolted. Jack had suffered countless dreams of running away from people, and in every dream his legs had turned to jelly and forgotten how to run. He had always been caught in his dreams, every time. Real life was different, but the terror was the same. A hidden reserve of adrenaline propelled Jack towards the next corner, and he reached the junction as a colossal bang sounded from the emergency exit. 100 little shotgun pellets pummeled into the wall a meter to his left. Admiring his good fortune, Jack leapt around the corner and out of range. As soon as Jack believed himself to be safe, rational thoughts returned to him, and he realized that he would never, ever outrun Oliver Roth. Jack Hopper, who had feigned illness through most of his PE lessons and spent his adolescence avoiding exercise like a child avoiding vegetables, would make nothing of his 3-year age advantage. All he could do was hide. Jack dashed around a second corner, slowed to a halt, and grabbed the first door handle he saw. He opened the door with a quiet tug, slipped through, and pushed the door back in place with an almost silent click. Jack perked an eyebrow at the sight before him. He had neither known nor cared what lay on the other side of the door, but the truth surprised him. He was standing in a communal changing room, like those in the gyms he never went to. A row of showers stretched around the corner, open lockers lined the edge of the room, and a single change of clothes had been draped over the sodden bench in the middle. It was a room for clones, of course. Jack imagined a nearby arena for hand-to-hand combat training, treadmills for fitness and endurance, and perhaps weightlifting equipment. Jack's thoughts changed lanes without signaling, and he was hit with a painful realization. Why did I run? I had Oliver Roth on the floor with his shotgun out of his grip. I had a gun in my hand, and I legged it. Why the hell did I run? He even fired his second shotgun cartridge at me while I was running. I could have turned around and shot him before he reloaded. Why did I? Fear. Such a simple, irritating answer. Oliver Roth was so terrifying that retreat always felt like the best option. Even at a rare moment when victory was certain, Jack had not noticed it was possible. Outside the changing room, somebody swore. Jack froze every part of himself, right down to his lungs. After a long moment of silence, Jack heard the assassin's voice. Ian, it's me. Okay, good. He's concentrating on his phone. That's Ian Marshall, right? Like head of military, and the guy who masterminded Takeover Day. As opposed to Nicholas Grant, who is the boss of everything. Ian Marshall's the head of military. I'll flush their guy away from the exit, the voice continued behind the door. They're trapped in the Citadel now. No, he's still alive. Tell me where the others are. Even when I'm safely hidden, you still scare me, Jack thought towards Oliver Roth. Why? Got it. I'll go up there and meet them. Because you killed Beth Foster. You orphaned Thomas by shooting his mum to death. You got Ben Christie with a sniper rifle, and for weeks we didn't even know it was you. Miles Ashford, Tim Carson, Joe Horn. What do you mean not going alone? I'm not having some test tube creatures take my scalps. I've wiped 7 of this crew already, and today I might get double figures. David and Val Riley, our only married couple. You cornered them when they'd run out of bullets. You threw them a knife and promised you'd make it quick if one of them killed the other. I heard you snorting over David's radio as he handed her the knife and asked her, and you laughed as Val apologized and stabbed her husband of 10 years. How did a boy like you become Grant's head assassin? What the hell will you be like as an adult? Fine, finished Oliver Roth as he started to run, his voice fading as he went. I'll lead a bloody team. Get 30 of them to meet me. Jack breathed a long sigh of relief and glanced around the empty changing room. The owner of the spare change of clothes would return soon, so time was against him on both sides of the door. He took his radio from his belt. The others had to be warned. End of chapter 11.
Questions. Okay, too many questions. Does Alex die for real?
If I were just to go, yes, then would you thank me for it? Or the opposite, if I said, oh no, don't worry, he's alive.
Don't make it more difficult for me, Chris.
Oh, yeah, well, don't worry. I'm sure next chapter will make it all better.
Okay, so, all right. I'm just stuck on that part. But anyway, the next question, it looks like Oliver is kind of taking Keith Tyler's place.
Oh, yes. Keith Tyler from chapter 1, he was originally introduced as Nicholas Grant's number 2 assassin, leading the reader, hopefully, to ask, okay, well, who's number 1? Well, now you've met number 1, and he is Oliver Roth. You don't know him particularly well yet, but as the series goes on, you find that he's more and more complex character. He's still very much an absolute monster, but as opposed to Keith Tyler, who was a monster nearly at the age of 40, who was quite sadistic and methodical, and that's really all there was to him, because you don't really spend much time with him. You get to know Oliver Roth a lot more, and I don't want to say anything else because we're talking
No
beyond the
spoilers
next
when
couple
Steph
of
is not
chapters here.
here
Yeah,
today.
exactly. But Oliver Roth is one of the characters who I'm kind of proud of creating, simply because of things that you won't have seen just yet.
Okay, well yeah, I wouldn't want a spoiler alert. If Steph was here, he'd say spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah. In fact, hopefully Steph will be watching this after. If you are Steph, then hi. If you're watching the recording of this, but
Hi,
yes.
Steph. I know Rolfe was supposed to join us, and I know if he misses that, he's going to be upset about it. So, when Rolfe, if you listen to the video, hi to you as well. One thing that I want to kind of like go back to here is when I think when Jack is questioning himself that, why did I run? Why did I run? I had it in control and all of that. I think apart from fear, it sometimes, as a neurodivergent, it happens to me that in that specific situation, in a certain situation, I kind of don't respond, or I don't react, or I react a totally opposite way. And then later when I think about it, and it kind of all starts making sense, and I'm like, oh, I need to get back and say this. So part of that is delayed processing as well. Would you say that?
I would say yes, absolutely. And I'm now going to pretend that the reason that's not in the book is because Jack himself didn't think it, because he doesn't really know what delayed processing is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Jenny, I know this is your first time coming across Chris's book. You do have a copy of the book, right?
I do have a copy of the book. My cat is currently sleeping on it, and you know the rule. If the cat's sleeping on something, you can't move it. So I've been listening in. I literally just got a copy of the book I got the copy the other day. So I haven't had a chance to start reading yet. But the premise sounds fascinating. And I really appreciate the representation of the different ways of being neurodivergent in literature. It's something that's so underrepresented, and so I'm very excited to have something new to read.
Yeah, thank you. And so, yeah, thanks very much for your kind words and in advance for reading it. And yeah, about representation, there's around the time where Underdogs came out, 2019, it was released. We were kind of in the middle of featuring autistic characters had become the latest big thing, like the new fad where, oh, look at us, we're doing an inclusion. We have a side character with autism. And yeah, I decided that, and sometimes not much depth goes into it. It's almost like they just Google the symptoms and then just allow the autistic character to do what the plot required them to do for the story to progress, but make them do it awkwardly whilst solving a Rubik's Cube or something. And yes, I'm a hypocrite because I'm amazing at Rubik's Cubes, but it's the first Asperger's stereotype that I can think of offhand.
One thing that I did, I when I was looking at, I was reading your author's note at the very beginning, and how
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah, and how you were like, yes, this person, represents like Kate. I remember specifically, yes, Kate, represents somebody who has autism with anxiety. She represents Kate. Like Kate is Kate. And that's something that I actually shared with a group of friends of mine. When I was like, oh, look at this new book I get to read. I'm so excited. And they wanted all the details, of course. And so I just love that Kate is Kate. The person, the characters, or somebody who has autism, or someone who is neurodivergent, it's not their identity, right? They're not. You're right. It's like the Rubik's.
To an extent, it is, but it's not. That they're not just a blank canvas with some kind of neurotype painted over it.
Right.
She is actually a person. It's that's the thing that's difficult to word and answer to. Does your autism define you? Because on the one hand, well, technically I am more than my autism, but also 100% of me is autistic, so it does make a very important part of my identity. But there is more to me than that. But it's also 100%. So yeah, it's tricky to put into words.
It's tricky. I feel like I am autistic. Yes, I have ADHD. Yes, I'm a brain injury survivor. But I'm also more than those things. Like those are three big labels to put on a person. But I'm also Jenny, and I'm Jenny first. I'm Jenny before any of that stuff.
I think part of the reason why a lot of people like to put it that way is the stigma associated with these words.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there should be a stigma associated with the word disability, autism, ADHD, or even a traumatic brain injury, to say if these are my ways of being neurodivergent, then these are me. And anybody who associates stigma is kind of depriving me of the right, of the access to a world that I have an equal right to. And so I believe that is why a lot of people feel the need to say that, I am more than that, or I don't want to be limited, because there is that stigma. Once you understand that there shouldn't be a stigma, you wouldn't feel the need to, because I don't have autism, I am autistic, and so it's kind of like one of those things where it goes so much more deeper than it may seem.
Yeah, for sure.
Question: if I'm supposed to be more than my autism, am I also more than my left-handedness?
Exactly. Oh, you're a lefty too?
I am, yeah. Well, left-handed in writing, right-handed in everything else. Okay, left-handed high five.
Woo.
I'm right-handed, so I can't high five you on that one. But I'm just saying, language has such a greater impact. It is so strong,
absolutely.
and it's just it's just one of those things that I think there should be more research done on how to reduce that stigma with these words.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in danger of going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I'd like to think
Yes.
that there's a useful tangent. You know that phrase, autism isn't a disability, it's a different ability.
Mhm.
You'd think someone like me would be pretty much on board with that, right? Because in my particular case, I I wouldn't tick the box on job application form that says I identify as disabled, because honestly, I don't. To me, it is a different ability. But leaving aside that I have a stepdaughter for whom autism is a disability,
Yes.
I also don't really like the message it sends. It has that very well-meaning autism positive approach, but ask any disabled autistic person whether they feel that their autism is being represented positively by someone saying, "Oh, don't worry, you're not disabled," because basically that means that means that disability is bad, and we're trying to take autism away from disability, so you can, yeah, it it may sound quite complimentary towards autism, but it's quite derogatory towards disability, and I don't think
Exactly.
that's very
And
autism positive.
it's high time that I think everyone in life gets disabled at a certain point in life, right? And just because a person's disability is different than what you might usually see, it doesn't mean that it's anything. It's not an us versus them or them versus us. It's not separating the disabled people from the humanity at large, disability is something very normal to humanity. Disability is an inherent condition, and it shouldn't be. There should not be a stigma. Like, I am so passionate in it. I could speak on it for hours and hours, but I know we are on borrowed time here, Chris.
I
This is a
if
discussion
we,
that we
if we
need
spend
to
a
have.
couple of minutes, because I'm in like full out geek mode here. What crossed my mind just then is that what was it? Um, oh yeah, you know what else a stigma towards autism that leads to, and including among very very well-meaning people, because stigma isn't just perpetuated by the bad guys; it's perpetuated
Yes.
by often very well-meaning people. For example, did you know that I'm autistic, which means that if I struggle with something, I struggle because of my autism? And also, did you know that if I succeed at something, I succeed despite my autism?
Mhm.
No.
Allow me to demonstrate. Give me a second. I don't think you've seen this before, so not from me anyway. Just give me a second to prove my point. Is I'm trying to hold it up to the camera so the camera can see, and it's slowing me down quite a lot. Pardon me. Yeah, nearly there. Here we
I
go.
hope I had started the timer. I time him usually,
Oh,
Jenny.
do you?
Yeah.
It's faster than
No,
I've never
that's
been
fine.
able
But
to solve
there you
this.
go.
Look at that.
Look what I did, despite my autism.
Yeah. I think you
It,
did
I
that
am
because
so
of
much
your
more than my
autism.
autism.
yeah, I really like that you shared this, that
Mhm.
it's easy to blame all the deficits on autism, and
Yes.
then there is then this great divide. Either autism is represented in the media as something with a lot of deficits, or it's a superhero.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, there is a mix, and
Yeah,
there are different kinds of support needs, and
Yeah, for sure.
it's not one without the other, and that's important to understand. But I really want to kind of have this discussion in detail sometime very
I
soon.
would love that.
I would love that
oh,
as
I would
well.
love that.
Chris, I will, plan that out and send the invitation to, and maybe we can have Jeff on board with us then too.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting discussion. And anybody who's going to listen to this, if you want to join in on the discussion, we can send you an invite as well. But now moving on to chapter 12.
Right. Okay. So I should probably say, by the way, before I begin, that perhaps the best compliment that Underdogs ever received prior to publication was actually in response to this chapter. So, my best friend at the time, who has since become my partner, uh, she was reading on her laptop the very early version of Underdogs, just as a proofreader, and yeah, she was accidentally wearing her Fitbit, and later on that night, she looked at the Fitbit stats, and there were two big peaks when she ended up well, peaking, obviously, having a much higher heart rate throughout the rest of the day. Now, the first bit was when she was outside mowing the lawn. The second bit was when she was sat still, not doing any moving, but just reading chapter 12 of Underdogs. So I take that as quite a compliment, really. In fact, she showed me a screenshot of it. So we now have like biologically backed up evidence of exactly how effective Underdogs is. So I'm quite happy.
Well, now I'm even more excited to hear this chapter.
Yeah, now I've built it up quite suitably. Anyway, so here we go, chapter 12. McCormick, yeah, McCormick and Simon are the comms units, and they're the people who get called up if they're in trouble or if there's updates to. Anyway, here we go. McCormick took another erratic sip of his tea as it rippled through the shaking cup. Simon had frozen on his left, his hands clenched as if in prayer, and a distinctive expression that McCormick knew all too well. Simon was scared, and not just because the team's presence had been uncovered. The day's troubles had been an extra layer of worry smoothed over a lifetime full of other worries. I never met a youngster with Down syndrome before takeover day. Even now, I'm no expert. I've seen those eyes in 100 troubled teenagers. McCormick began to ponder. When he looked back on his life and searched for the good bits, plenty enough of them had been in his years as a mathematics lecturer. He had helped young adults leap into the job market with good degrees under their belts. He had guided some through their doctorates. But by far the brightest moments in his life had been outside of his work. He and Barbara had supported so many disaffected youngsters that their friends had jokingly called them foster parents. Barbara had taken the news of her infertility as well as anyone would expect. But in true Barbara style, she had turned it into a positive. Their parental love, reserved for a baby McCormick who never came to be, had been spread over the decades on 100 other young people they had loved. How on earth would Barbara see me now, the leader of teenage rebels with enormous personal issues? Would she congratulate me for adopting them, or scold me for turning them into an army? Would she forgive me for how I spent the 2 years after her death? Would she thank Polly for bringing me back? Or would she be distracted by the fact that McCormick shook his head to wake himself up? He knew the truth already. Barbara McCormick would feel as devastated as Joseph McCormick felt daily, because out of all the young people they had built together, every last one of them would now be imprisoned or dead. On takeover day, Nicholas Grant had undone a lifetime of Dr. McCormick's efforts. Now there was only Thomas and the teenagers. His impact on them would be the sum total of his life's work. The phone rang. A regular call, not a video call. When he answered, Kate was wailing. "Sir, things got bad. Very bad." "What happened?" "They found us quicker than we thought," Kate gasped, clearly running as she yelled. "Ewan got what we were after, but it's too late to use it. We're trying to get out, but it doesn't look good. And Alex..." McCormick and Simon stared at each other like two deer in headlights. "Kate, talk to me." I think Alex is dead. I don't know. He's trapped. Unarmed, shot in the shoulder, either dead or captured." McCormick closed his eyes, and the corners of his lips twitched. "That's 21. 21 dead friends since takeover day. 22 including Polly. She would have made a fine underdog. Polly died on takeover day, but you don't know how." "Kate, what about the others?" "I think Ewan and Charlie are okay. They're running downstairs to meet Jack. I'm in the stairwell. Do you need directions?" "No, there's something more important." McCormick's brow ruffled. Nothing in the world could have been more important than his 4 young friends escaping New London. Nonetheless, Kate continued. "I never really knew my granddads. I have 2 grannies, but my granddads died before I could remember them." "I'm sorry, Kate." "You know what this means about you, right?" There's a warbling in Kate's voice, as if she were unintentionally singing a song. "I wish so much that we'd known each other back in the old days. You didn't think less of me for my autism, my anxiety. You didn't mind about the horrible stuff that happened in mainstream." McCormick could have counted the pulse in his wrist without touching it. The words were lovely, but Kate would only have said them if she believed there wouldn't be another chance. The pace and timing of her words suggested she'd been planning this speech for a while. "I came to Spitfire's Rise thinking it was the end of everything, that we'd hide in somebody else's bedrooms for as long as we could until they found us and killed us. The thought of fighting back never occurred to me, but you turned us into fighters. And somehow you didn't do it for revenge. This war has always been about other people, thousands of people we've never met. You did that. You made us face our fears, and McCormick's eyes felt heavy. Tears were coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. You're the closest man I've ever had to a granddad. If I don't get out of here, you had to know that before the end. Thank you. It was my pleasure, Kate. Don't ever forget me. And tell Raj. McCormick lurched at the sudden burst of gunfire. Kate gasped and hung up her phone. When McCormick looked down, his blurred eyes were met with the sight of his own tears, staining the crusted map of Floor J. His aged fingernails clawed against his temples, as if trying to attack the hurt inside his head. Sir, whispered Simon at his side. Yes, Simon? I think same thing. Simon is situationally mute, by the way, so any time he speaks, it's something special. And now, Jenny, you get to meet Ewan. Ewan had not bothered to count the floors from J downwards. At least the downward trip was faster, even if their frantic pace made it dangerous. Jack's waiting for us, right? Charlie puffed. I'm down here, came a voice from floor Z. Jack emerged from under the steps as Ewan reached the bottom floor. Good to see you, mate, Ewan said, giving Jack a well-deserved handclasp for being in the right place at the right time. Likewise, did you hear about Kate? And Ewan dropped his eyes to the floor, more angry than upset. Yeah, we have to assume he's dead. Ewan had enough experience of awkward conversations to know that silence was about to take over. Then Jack would say something positive as if trying to help, Charlie would shout something angry and impulsive, Ewan would feel the weight of expectation upon him to solve the conflict, and probably blurt out something leader-like in order to cover up his own hurt. At that moment, Ewan just couldn't be bothered to deal with it. The probable death of Alex Gianelli was enough. Without waiting, he opened the door into the floor Z corridor and peeked through. Our exit's somewhere around stairwell 8, he said. Just count down numbers as we go. Ewan, came Kate's voice from his belt, with the voice she often used when fighting a panic attack. Stairwell 63. Can you wait for me? If not, I don't mind. Her sentence was interrupted by a loud bang as Charlie fired a bullet that zipped past Ewan's face, flew down the corridor, and hit an inquisitive clone in the neck. They did not stay to watch it fall and choke on its artificial blood. An alert had been raised, evidenced by the sound of charging footsteps not far away. The team stumbled towards the opposite ends of the corridor, slowed by their own exhaustion. We're heading towards you anyway, Ewan gasped into the radio. But you're further north than I am. North's blocked. We'll regroup where you are and make a plan from there. The run to stairwell 63 was shorter than Ewan had predicted, or maybe time passed quicker when he was being hunted. Kate appeared 100 meters from the stairwell. When they met, she threw her arms around Ewan and then Jack and Charlie in turn. Ewan allowed it, as uncomfortable as it was. She was drenched in tears, and her mission partner was dead. Kate threw her stolen rifle to one side, declaring in silence that it was empty. Jack removed a spare pistol and handed it to her. West, Ewan commanded, then back up from there. Ewan, said Jack. Oliver Roth chased me from the exit. They'll have it guarded. What, we out of bullets or something? Before anybody could reply, the sound of footsteps had returned. They've caught up, said Charlie redundantly. Head west, now. The platoon's front clone fired a couple of unsuccessful shots before the team escaped down the next corridor. He didn't need to hit us. The sound of his gunshots will be heard everywhere. Ewan normally loved being proven right, but he swore under his breath after the next right turn, where a second platoon of clone soldiers had gathered, followed by a third behind them. His last shred of confidence was extinguished by the sight of Oliver Roth. Surprise, retards! He yelled, flanked on both sides by a fourth platoon. I despise that word as much as most decent people, but that is basically his catchphrase. He uses it deliberately to hurt them. Charlie opened fire towards him, only for his bullets to be blocked by clone soldiers, who jumped in front of the assassin-like bodyguards under helpless command. Roth grinned and raised his shotgun. Pinned at a four-way junction by the north, east, and west sides, Ewan tried to calculate their chances. Could they break through one platoon before the others caught up? How much ammunition would remain if they did? The first platoon released a speed mine. South, Ewan shouted. It's bad, but we'll live longer. Kate and Jack wasted no time in obeying, but Charlie shot him a disappointed glare. Would you rather die now or in a few minutes? Ewan asked, before firing a bullet into the speed mine and fleeing with his team. The explosion blocked out the next of Ewan's curses. His team was running into a T-junction. When they arrived, they were met by a platoon approaching from the left, another from the right, and the previous swarm of enemies approaching from behind. It was like those zombie movies Ewan used to watch. When a character was cornered with literally no chance of survival, they would keep firing bullets until they were eaten alive. Ewan understood fighting spirit, but has always assumed those bullets to be a final act of defiance towards the enemy. Now in the same position himself, he knew what it truly meant. It was a simple desperation to stay alive for just 10 more seconds. Take cover, Kate shouted. Concentrate on one direction and we might clear an exit. Jack, get behind that pillar. Up to that moment, Ewan hadn't noticed the metal pillars at the side of the wall. There was one every 5 meters, lining the length of the corridor as far as he could see. Ewan did not know what they were for and did not care. They were perfect cover for an average-sized human and would ensure their survival for a little longer. Oh, bloody hell, shouted Charlie. Is that what I think it is? Ewan dared to lean back far enough to peek down the central chamber. The platoon had pushed themselves against the walls to make way for the enormous laser cannon, which trundled down the path with a rumble like a growling tank. It stood almost as tall as the ceiling, its caliber at least 4 feet wide, and it emitted a constant, high-pitched whine like an electric shock to the ears. 4 angry figures pushed it along the corridor, one of which was Oliver Roth himself. It's a laser cannon, shrieked Ewan. They're actually real! Not believing in something doesn't stop it from existing, Ewan, yelled Jack from a distance. The appearance of the laser cannon wiped out any hope that Grant wanted them alive. Kate leant out from the pillar with a borrowed handgun. She managed 3 bullets and 1 kill before the remainder of the platoon, in a chorus of automatic weapons, showered their ammunition straight back into the metal pillars. Grant was nice building these random shelters for us, said Charlie with a morbid laugh. Ewan could sense a figurative light bulb flickering on above his head. Wait, he said. These must have some kind of purpose. Who gives a crap? Me. And these are structural supports. Charlie, I know where we are. Charlie was facing the oncoming horde, so it was Kate who screamed first. Ewan, what the hell are you doing? It was a stupid risk and he knew it, but inaction would have been fatal. Ewan gritted his teeth and charged across to the neighbouring pillar, passing the firing line of the laser cannon. As he leapt across the T-junction like a pouncing cat, there came a yell from Oliver Roth and an almighty electric boom. A 4-foot circle of light flew down the corridor and smacked against the wall, where it produced a near deafening crackle and a concave crater in the area it had struck. Chunks of reinforced concrete spilled out into the corridor. Ewan, seriously, yelled Kate from beside him. What the hell are you up to? Roth wants to kill us even if it means trashing the place, Ewan answered, leaping behind the nearest pillar. Let's give him the chance. His friends spent ineffective bullets on the platoons closest to them. Ewan joined in, but only long enough to hear the electrical whine of the laser cannon again. Half a minute to recharge. That should be enough. Enough for what? An escape. Ewan played the same trick twice, and Roth was angry enough to fall for it again. On Ewan's second leap, the laser circle missed him by less than a foot, and the explosion against the far wall threw him into the firing line of the approaching platoons. Ewan ignored the dizziness and sudden pain in his ears, and as Charlie dragged him by the shoulder behind the safety of the pillar, he turned his head to observe his work. Natural sunlight poured into the corridors of Floor Z. Ewan laughed aloud. He'd been proven right again, but for the first time that day it felt good. They had run so far through the outer city walls that the world's largest prison lay just a few feet away. The fresh hole in the wall revealed the inner city, the incarcerated population of London, and a fighting chance at survival. Guys, Ewan shouted, we've got less than half a minute. Let's bail. Charlie was the first to scramble for the giant hole. Jack followed and shrieked halfway through, his hands touching the laser-heated metal. Note to self, don't use bare hands to escape. Charlie and Jack took the plunge and fell out of view. A moment later, Kate started to yell. Jack's handgun was already empty. A familiar whining buzz emanated from the south corridor. Go, Kate. Kate did not need telling twice. The control panel of the laser cannon displayed the all-important green LED, but Roth was too late to fire the third shot. Ewan and Kate tumbled through the hole together and leapt headfirst into uncharted territory. End of chapter 12. So yeah, they barely escaped, and they their way of escaping was how's your pulse rate? The only way of escaping was by falling into inner city prison, which you have not seen yet. But that's what all of chapter 13 is about.
I think I'll need to read this chapter again just to kind of like absorb.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to read this chapter with context.
It will make
of course, you've gone straight into this.
Yeah, so I'll be. I have a feeling when I reread it, I'll be like, oh.
Well, I'm just. I feel like too many things are moving too fast in this chapter, and
it's probably how they feel as well.
Yeah. It's wow. I feel like this is kind of, yeah, racing heartbeats and everything. Yeah, spot on, Chris.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're done with chapter 11 and 12. And do you want to give like a teaser for chapter 13 and 14, maybe? Like a
Wow.
tiny, teeny
Let's take
teaser
a look.
without giving any spoilers?
Could read the first couple of paragraphs of chapter 13 if you want.
We can't do the paragraph, unfortunately, because we have, right after this, we have a meeting to get to. So we won't, but I do really want a teaser, just kind of like
Just
what
say
you're,
what the stuff's about.
yeah.
Okay, well, chapter 14 takes place back at Spitfire's Rise. So that one is a lot calmer. It's another Raj chapter, and he's basically trying to find out who on earth Shannon is. And that leaves chapter 13 as basically this giant chase across the inner city prison of New London because the clones have not given up and they're still after the underdogs. Except there's lots and lots of locals there as well who are also quite confused about what's going on. And that's where I'm going to stop describing stuff.
One thing that I'm going to do this time is going to read ahead because I don't think I can wait a month. I'm sorry. I cannot. Uh,
So,
it's just that when you read a book, so in my mind, I'm thinking about very like operational stuff. So when you mentioned the locals, like ever since I've been doing the book reading, I'm always thinking about, well, how do they do groceries and how do they, like all of that, and how do they earn money and stuff, like, so all these questions. And I'm like, Summer, is that even normal for you to be thinking about this and all of this is happening on the other side? So this is something that I'm excited to read, like kind of like a little bit of input on what's happening locally in the upcoming chapter.
mm, yeah, the tricky part in writing the story, informing the reader of what the Underdogs universe looks like, at the same time as being a story that's inside the characters' heads, is that you don't know anything the main characters don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
you'll discover this when you read from the beginning, Jenny. That
Mhm.
the reader does find out how the clones took over. Well, how Nicholas Grant and his army of clones took over. That gets revealed in chapter 6, but through a conversation between various characters. And there's also one of the godsons once asked me, so how exactly, chemically speaking, how does recreating clones actually work? And I said, well, I don't know because the characters don't know.
Mhm.
And was yeah, that's it. It was a McCormick chapter where he's talking about it, and trying to remember how the conversation. Remember that. That's good, but yeah, that's it. So my godson asked, so why doesn't McCormick know that this stuff about the clones? And I said, well, because he's a mathematician, not a biologist. And he
Mhm.
said, okay, well, why don't you know then? You're the author. I went, because I'm a mathematician, not a scientist.
Well, it's, I've never written a book, and so I feel like, these are the things that only authors would know, limitations of a character and what should be included in a book and whatnot.
It's stuff that you learn from experience, and it's also good to know that you're not alone in things like this. There's a meme. I hope you don't mind the mild language warning here, but there was a meme shared in a writers group that I saw the other day, and it said something to the effect of, "Okay, so I've successfully trapped my characters in a situation that's going to require lots and lots of intelligence and lots of clever and creative thinking. Now, unfortunately, their escape is going to be down to me, a dumbass." So yeah, it really sucks when you're writing characters who are actually cleverer than you are.
Mhm.
Hmm. It's fun anyway, and yeah, the thing is, I'm thinking of examples where I've had the exact thing happening to me, but I can't say them without spoilers.
Yeah, no
Obviously,
spoilers. I'm very anti-spoiler.
oh
Except
yes,
for
with good reason.
today, of course. So, Summer, you're muted.
I always do that, Jenny. So today it's snowing in Texas, and
Yes,
so
we're very
schools are
excited.
up, and the work is off. So we're on like a tiny winter vacation. And so my little one, he usually feels very intrigued when I have the camera on and stuff like that. So today he just
Yeah.
came in and he wanted me for something, and I asked him to step in. He was like, "Not today." I'm like, "Okay, not today."
Not today.
Not today. So he took my mobile phone, wanted to take a picture of his plushies. So that's why I took a tiny little
Oh, it's fine.
camera off time. So I apologize for that. But now, wrapping it up. Thank you so much for this, Chris. I'm going to read these two
Right.
chapters in advance. I am sorry, but I can't wait that long. And
Well, you only really need to read one of them. The other one's a comparatively calm Spitfire's Rise chapter,
Okay.
but chapter
well,
13 is not calm at all.
once I start reading, I'll have to see if I can stop reading. That's that's a concern. So that's why I just don't, I just didn't start it because I was like, then I'm gonna finish it all. I can't. I'm not a very patient person. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, just to kind of recap everything before we leave, we have two brand new members on the board, Jenny Bridges, Jeff Owens. We also have launched a couple of programs online, and the program interest form is also live on our website, www.kindtheory.org. If you or anyone you know is interested, please fill out the form, let us know. And today we had a great discussion on stigma, language, and neurodiversity, autism, ADHD, disability. And we found out that there is a great need for a discussion on this. And so we'll be planning a discussion panel with, if I mumble, I'm sorry, the words with double S, I
Oh, I
usually
got
get, yeah. So we're going to plan that discussion panel very soon. And we'll put out a flyer out for that. Anyone who's interested is more than welcome to join us. We respect all opinions. We are all about connecting everyone together. So we respect all opinions. And, we're really looking forward to a discussion like this that can address all of those topics out there. So, with that said, am I missing out on anything? Chris, Jenny,
I
please
don't
feel
think
free to.
so. I think we've got it all set.
Chris, can you give like a little update on your projects as well, for which, anything that you want to share so that if anybody's listening, they can kind of follow you?
Well, my children's book about an autistic 11-year-old who rediscovers his confidence through learning how to solve Rubik's Cubes. That's coming out in September through Collins Learning, and that's going quite well. And in the upcoming month or two, there's going to be a Kickstarter campaign launched for a non-fiction book. The current title is What We Love Most About Life, and it's basically an anthology of 150 autistic children, teenagers, and some adults telling the reader what they love most about life. So a very shamelessly positive autism book, which is designed for loads of people read it. I imagine it being quite helpful for newly diagnosed autistic children who are wondering if they're the only autistic people in the world, or people with self-esteem struggles, but also people who are just curious about the autistic perspective, or people who just want 150 reasons why life is awesome.
Love this.
Absolutely looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that's a wrap, everyone.
Okay.
So take good care and have a lovely snowy day if you're in Texas. If not, if it's not snowing, I will send some snow your way. I'll try to. I don't promise. I'm making no promises, but I'll try my best. But the snow will be there in spirit because I'm sending it like in spirit to you. All right. So take care, everyone.
All
Have a
right.
nice day.
Bye.
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 And broadcast.